Go.
Wait, what about you?
I'll be fine.
The movie kicks off in this gloomy little Albanian village called Tropoj, where a bunch of rough-looking guys in black are standing around at a funeral. But this isn't your average sad goodbye. It's a full-on mob gathering. The graves belong to some of their own, and these guys aren't just there to mourn. Their boss, Murad Krasniqi, is standing there fuming, making a fiery speech about payback. His message is loud and clear. They're gonna hunt down this guy named Brian Mills and make him pay. Cut to sunny Los Angeles, and there's Brian, but he's not doing anything flashy like we've seen before. He's at a car wash, quietly cleaning a ride like he's just a normal dude. But that's Brian, low-key but always sharp. He heads over to his ex-wife Lenore's place to visit their daughter Kim. Lenore breaks it to him that she's seeing someone else now. You can tell Brian's not happy about that at all, but he keeps his cool. He later tracked Kim down using a GPS he sneakily dropped into her phone, super dad mode activated. He catches her while she's hanging out with her boyfriend and basically pulls the OL dad interrupting the date move. He tells her to come with him for a driving practice session. She's 18 now and already failed her driving test twice, so Brian thinks he's helping, but Kim is over it. She's had enough of his constant hovering. Even though it's been years since she was kidnapped, from the first movie, Brian's still acting like she's made of glass. Meanwhile, over in Paris, the bad guys from Albania aren't wasting any time. They bust into the home of Brian's old buddy Jean-Claude. They rough him up looking for Brian, but he doesn't have a clue where his friend is. That doesn't stop them. They're already tracking Brian's next destination, Istanbul. Back in LA, Brian swings by Lenore's place again, and this time she's visibly upset. Apparently, she and her new man Stuart had a big fight, and their vacation to China is now canceled. Brian, seeing a window of opportunity, offers a little getaway of his own. He suggests that Lenore and Kim tag along with him to Istanbul. Lenore is hesitant, not wanting to be a burden, but something tells us she's tempted. Elsewhere, the Albanian crew is already making their way through the rough mountain passes, gearing up for their ambush in Turkey. When Brian lands in Istanbul, he checks into his hotel and tries to leave a voicemail for Lenore, until surprise. She and Kim are already there. Looks like they took him up on his offer. Later on, Brian heads to his room and opens a secret stash box loaded with weapons. Classic Brian. Meanwhile, Lenore and Kim settle into the room next door. That evening, Brian and Kim go out for a boat ride on the Bosphorus. During the trip, Brian can't help but pry into Kim's love life. He brings up her boyfriend Jamie and tries to figure out if it's serious. She's unsure, brushing off the question. She also brings up something Lenore once said, that back in the day, her relationship with Brian was something magical. The next morning, Kim goes out to explore the city on her own, while Brian and Lenore take a cab ride around town. But mid-trip, Brian's instincts kick in. Something feels off. He tells the driver to switch routes, then urges Lenore to get back to the hotel immediately. She jumps out and takes off running. Brian takes over the wheel from the confused driver and calls Kim, but she's chilling by the pool and doesn't hear her phone ringing. Lenore doesn't make it back. She ends up getting caught in a trap, and before Brian can even react, a group of thugs swarms him. He fights back hard, taking a few of them down, but things go south when one of them brings Lenore in as a hostage. Brian's forced to surrender. He throws down his gun and calls Kim, warning her that he and her mom are about to get kidnapped. He gives her instructions on how to stay safe and what to do next before smashing the phone. The goons knock him out and drag both him and Lenore away. Kim finally gets out of the pool, heads upstairs, and sneaks into Brian's room through the window. She hides in his closet just before the thugs barge in. Hotel security notices something's off, but unfortunately, the attackers are quick and brutal. They take the guards out. Brian wakes up in a dark room, arms tied to a pipe with a zip tie. Classic villain dungeon setup. While he's alone, he pulls out a tiny burner phone he had stashed and tries calling his buddy Sam, but no luck. He reaches out to Kim, and she tells him she's still okay. He then instructs her to find one of his grenades, toss it from a certain spot, and let it go boom, so he can figure out how far away she is. Before they can talk more, he hides the phone again. Murad walks in. The man's not happy, and he's carrying a bunch of photos of all the men Brian took out in the last movie. Murad gets particularly emotional when he pulls out a picture of his son, Mirko, the one Brian electrocuted with those DIY battery cables. He hasn't forgotten, and now it's personal. Calmly tells Murad that everything he did was just payback. They snatched his daughter, and he did what any dad would do. But Murad isn't trying to hear it. He's done listening and is hellbent on revenge. He drags Lenore into the room slashes her neck. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to make a statement, and then hoists her upside down, putting a sack over her head. His idea of torture is watching her slowly lose blood flow to the brain. Sick, right? Then he starts spouting off some dark, disgusting threats about Kim. How once they get their hands on her, they'll throw her into the dirtiest corner of the human trafficking world, where she'll just be passed around like a broken toy. Brian's boiling inside, but he keeps calm and plots his move. Using pure grit and whatever strength he's got left, Brian breaks out of his restraints and manages to lower Lenore before it's too late. She's hurt but alive. He wastes no time and rings up Kim again, walking her through her next steps using more explosions as signals. Yeah, he's literally telling her to chuck grenades so he can hear the blasts and track her distance. Crazy, but it works. Then he breaks open a steam pipe and sends smoke up a chimney, guiding Kim like a human GPS. She's quick on her feet, grabs a pistol, and drops it down the chimney for her dad. With the gun in hand, Brian busts out of the place like a one-man army, gunning down every Albanian thug in his path. Kim, meanwhile, is parkouring across rooftops like she's in a video game. One of the goons corners her, and just when it looks bad, BM, Brian shows up and drops the guy with a single shot. Kim's shaking, but she's safe now. Brian grabs her and they disappear together. But they're not out of the woods yet. They jack a taxi off the street, and Brian starts the countdown on Kim's phone. He's got under 5 minutes to get Lenore before they move her again. He rushes off while Kim waits, watching the timer tick. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it in time, and Lenore's gone. The bad guys have her again. He heads back to Kim, and they hit the road together in the cab. Brian's in the passenger seat, coaching her through a high-speed getaway. Yup, Kim, the girl who failed her driving test twice, is now flooring it through the streets of Istanbul with mobsters chasing them. They take bullets, crash through a few things, but somehow stay ahead. Brian tells her to make for the U.S. Embassy, the only place where they'll be safe. They barely make it, crashing through a checkpoint and finally pulling into the embassy grounds. Once inside, Brian finally gets through to his friend Sam. He begs him to alert anyone with connections who can lend a hand. Brian reassures Kim that she'll be protected now and promises that he'll do whatever it takes to bring her mom back. Not wasting a second, Brian follows every lead until he tracks down where Murad and the crew have taken Lenore. He heads straight there, no backup, no fancy gear, just raw instinct and the will to end this. As soon as he gets inside, the place turns into a war zone. Brian's a whirlwind, pistol whipping, shooting, dodging bullets like he's done this 1,000 times. Eventually, he runs into one particularly tough goon, and they get into a nasty hand-to-hand brawl. The guy almost manages to stab Brian, but our man turns the tables and takes him out hard. With the guy's weapon now in hand, Brian heads deeper into the compound. Finally, he finds Murad waiting for him in a tight, dimly lit room. Brian raises the gun, but before pulling the trigger, he asks Murad one last thing. Does he have any more sons? Murad nods. He's got 2 more boys. That's when Brian hesitates. He realizes that killing Murad will just keep the blood cycle going. More sons, more revenge, more people hurt. He sighs, drops the gun, and turns away, finally deciding that enough is enough. But Murad doesn't know when to quit. He lunges for the gun and pulls the trigger. Click. Nothing. Brian turns back, completely unfazed, and casually pulls the bullet from his pocket. Looking for this? He says, and then, without hesitation, rams Murad's head into a metal coat hanger, killing him instantly. He rushes over to Lenore, who's lying motionless on the ground. He cradles her, worried she's gone, but after a tense moment, she starts to wake up. She's alive. They hold each other, finally safe, at least for now. Fast forward 3 weeks. Kim is back home, taking her driver's test again. This time, she nails it. She finally passes, and Brian is beaming. He wraps her up in a big hug, proud as can be. To celebrate, Kim invites him and Lenore out for some ice cream. They hit up a little parlor, grab a table, and just as they're digging into their sundaes, Kim's boyfriend Jamie shows up. Kim looks at Brian, silently asking if it's cool if he joins. Brian hesitates. He's still not a fan of Jamie, but eventually cracks a little smile and gives the nod. Jamie sits down and joins the family for dessert. And hey, if you like this recap, go ahead and smash that like button. If you didn't, hit dislike twice just to make sure we got the message. Seriously though, this movie's wild. Watch the full thing if you haven't already. Thanks for sticking around.